Back, guys. Make sure everything is going. Checking my volume here. Today we are in chapter 1, but before we get into it, I just want to make sure everyone is where they need to be. Quick recap. Do we have any questions about yesterday? Anything? So most of you guys posted, so that was good. Everyone knows how to access their book. Make sure you do that online pledge or you won't be able to do any of the work. No? All right, very good. So today we are going to be talking about the first steps of career planning. Like I said to you before, this class is all about you, one, but two, making sure that when you leave this program, you have a sense of what's next, not just, oh, where's my next job? Where's my next opportunity? But what is my long-term objective? What am I trying to get out of this career? You've just spent time in school for however long. You should have a long-term plan for that success. We like to tell people to plan out at least 10 years. And then once you get past those 10 years, you should plan out for another 10 years and continue to plan out in that way. Organizations, companies have what they call, business plans. We've heard of those, right? Well, a business plan is basically an outline of what the company wants to be. You may have seen a company have a mission statement and a vision statement. Anybody ever heard of those? Mission statements, vision statements? Give me a thumbs up. A mission statement tells you what the company is all about, right? So a mission statement, could be like, it is our goal to ensure that we provide the best electrical services that there are to find, right? So what is their mission? Their mission is to provide the best service. But companies also have what we call a vision statement. The vision statement tells you how successful they want to be. So my mission statement could be, we want to be the best. Our vision is we want to be the #1 electrical company throughout the United States. That's a vision, right? So my goal could be to be the best electrical company, but my vision is to be the best electrical company throughout the United States. So in essence, the vision statement tells you how big that company wants to be, what their big vision is. How does that translate to you? You're not a business, right? I don't know. I think some people consider themselves that. Guess what? In essence, what are you doing when you get a job? What are you doing when you start a career? Are you not providing a service for compensation? When you sign that contract to work for that company, you see it as an offer letter. The company sees it as a contract for services. So are you not basically running your own business because you're technically selling your service for compensation? So you have to say to yourself, okay, I have this higher degree. I'm an expert now. That's what people will consider you, an expert. I need to go sell my service. But before I just jump out there and sell my service, there's a couple of things I need to think about. Number one, what is my mission? What am I trying to accomplish? Am I trying to become a master electrician and start my own business? Am I trying to become a veterinary specialist one day? Is my ultimate goal is to become a veterinarian? Am I trying to just specialize in reptiles or large farm animals, or am I trying to be a journeyman? Like, what am I trying to do? You can't just say, "Oh, I'm just trying to make some more money." I mean, you can say that, but that's not a plan. That's not a mission, and it's definitely not a vision. On the screen here, we are it shows a personal plan versus a financial plan. So many of us are used to doing financial plans, but we think they're financial plans, but they're really not. They're really just budgets based upon what money we have, right? What we may not be as used to doing is thinking about our long-term financial vision and how that correlates with our long-term career plan. Because in essence, your mission and your vision for yourself will feed into your financial goals, which typically what you're going to use to take care of your family, right? Just like a business will have a mission and a vision to grow their company so they can keep the business going. You want to have a mission and a vision for your career to keep your family unit going, even if your family consists of just you. So they have to go hand in hand. So when you start on the left-hand side with your career plan, you need to be thinking about, what is my long-term mission and vision? I want you to be thinking about that as we continue to have this conversation. So think about that now. So you may start saying, okay, I'm thinking about what is my vision? What is my mission? Am I trying to be the best? Am I trying to be an expert? Am I trying to be a jack of all trades? Do I just want to, am I starting out here and I'm going to get my general contractor's license? Like, what am I doing really? Well, it is going to vary from person to person. I bet if you were to ask 3 people around you what their goals are, they're not going to be the same as yours, because everybody is different. Everybody's starting from a different place. And some people are already coming with certain skill sets. So everyone's vision is different. So if you're starting out saying, well, I have no idea, teacher, please help me. Here are some tools that we're going to use to help you do just that, to figure out, what is my goal? What are my long-term objectives? Like I said, you're not trying to have a job, you're trying to have a career. So you need to think about the different career pathways in your industry. So if you have no idea what you want to do, if you're in the electrical industry, welding, HVAC, or VA, you need to do some research on your industry. You need to know, okay, where's my industry going? How do I how do I fit into that? What strategy am I going to use to be successful? Okay, I'm looking in the electrical industry and I see that the electrical industry is really moving to be more automated, or the HVAC industry is, it's very interdisciplinary with the electrical industry. So that means I'm gonna have to learn HVAC and electrical. This welding thing is getting really technical. They're using a lot of computers with this welding thing. So does that mean I need to really understand how graphics work? Y'all see what I'm doing, right? You got to do some research to see where's your industry going. And then you need to figure out where you want to fit into that. There are some websites that you can go to. Chapter 1 talks about the Department of Labor and the Occupational Information Network and others. Why are these good? These are good because it tells you where your industry is going. Like, you can go to the Department of Labor, you can go to the Occupational Network, and you can put in, your industry, or nowadays you can just go to Google and use their AI, and Google has a Gemini as their AI. And you could just type in, tell me give me a forecast for the electrical industry, and find out what is happening in your industry, because what you want to do is then say, okay, where do I fit into that? Where do I want to fit into that? Because you want to create some type of career plan. And what is it? It's like a documentation of where you are today based on where you want to be tomorrow. It lists out for you what we call action steps. Okay, I know I'm going to graduate, and for all of you, regardless of what your career outline is going to be, the first step is going to be graduating school. That's the first step. Now, what you do after that and where you're trying to go is going to be very unique to each of you. Well, outside of you doing research on your industries, you also need to conduct a self-assessment of yourself. Once again, this class is all about you. You need to figure out, who am I and what am I about, and what skills do I bring to the table, and do I even like not like that skill, because you could be really good at something. It doesn't mean you want to do it for a living. But how do I parlay that, and make it work for me? So what we're going to do for you is help you to think through some of that by having you taking what's called a self-assessment, so you can get a sense of, where you can be in your industry before we have you set a goal, which we call a SMART goal. Some will have more than one, so SMART goals. And the SMART is an acronym for how you set those goals using the research that you've done. So the first step in that 3-part series that I told you about is to set a long-term goal. So let's recap really quickly. I'm trying to figure out what I want to do. The teacher's telling me the first step is to do some research on my industry. Check. The second step is to take this self-assessment. And I'm not saying you're doing all of this today, but I'm just trying to get you a big picture, give you a big picture. I'm going to take this self-assessment. It's going to kind of tell me, hey, you'd be really good, doing this, or you'll be really good doing that. And then I'm going to try to use this information to set my long-term goal. Because the first step in that career planning process is to figure out what your long-term goal is. Now, after you figure out your long-term goal, then you can figure out what are the action steps to get to that long-term goal. We call those short-term goals. Underneath here, you'll see it says, with your short-term goals, you need to have SMART goals. I actually want you to think of this a little differently. I probably should have made this diagram a little differently. Your long-term goal and your short-term goal should all be SMART goals, meaning they should follow the SMART rule. And we'll talk about that in a few. So let's keep our thoughts hat on. We're saying, okay, Miss Taylor's saying, I need to be thinking about my long-term goals. I got to do some research on my industry. I really need to be, assessing myself. Like, what does she mean by that? Well, a self-assessment is a measurement, and it measures you, who you are, and what your attitude is about things, what your natural abilities are, what's your personality type, what's your value system. Are those important in choosing a career? You bet your bottom dollar, because guess what? Everybody is not built for everything. Could we agree with that? It took me a while to figure out, even though I was giving these self-assessments, okay, we say amen to that. The choir is singing in unison on that one, right? We're not all built for the same thing. When I was in the military, and I was about to, leave the military, I had to, well, even though that's not even true. I've always been thinking, okay, what's next? Even when I got in the military, I was already thinking, okay, what's next? Or what are my options? So I started going to college, And I thought I wanted to be a doctor. I thought I did, right? And in all honesty, I'm like, whatever's going to make me some money, I want to do. I have family in the medical industry, so I figured, okay, I'll go be a doctor. Uh, y'all want to know how long that lasted? Let me tell you. I think it lasted 2 semesters and 1 volunteer month at the hospital. I don't know what I was thinking. My brother worked at the hospital. My mom had worked at the hospital. Why would I not be able to work at a hospital? Man, just the if anybody is there anybody else out there that just hates the hospital? I don't know what it is. I don't know if it's the smell, it's the idea of what's happening in that hospital. You know, people both live and not live in that hospital. I get freaked out by it. My brother has been working in the medical industry for 25 years. It okay. Fredron, you want to say something? I don't know what I was thinking. I ran out of there so quickly, and I thought I was doing the easy stuff. I was like, okay, I'm going to go be a physical therapist, and I'm not going to be visual with you guys because I don't want you to think about what I had to see. But I didn't think about the type of people that do physical therapy. Y'all know what I'm thinking. I'm thinking athletes, I'm thinking that. But they're not the only people that need physical therapy. Anybody that's ever been in any type of accident will need physical therapy. And I want you to use your imagination on that. That did not, I don't know what I was thinking. I ran out of the hospital so fast. I'm like, now what in the world am I going to do with my life? So I said, okay, I'll become a computer scientist. Now that is where I messed up. I should have stayed. I'm so silly. I was in computers. I was putting computers together, taking them apart. I'm talking about back in the day. Man, I could have made me some money. I would have been rich by now. But I was bored to death. Go ahead, Saint. I was bored to death. If you have a question, you can come off and say it. I see your hand is raised. Um, and I didn't stay. So I was like, oh, okay, I'll go do this. And it was just a winding road. Why is that? Because I had no idea what I wanted to be when I grew up. I should have taken the test. So what does this test help us do to not make all the same mistakes Miss Taylor did? Um, it tells you about different things about yourself. Like for example, what things are you naturally good at? You know, I thought I liked people. That's why I thought I wanted to be a doctor. Not that I don't like people, but I just didn't want to help them in that kind of way. But I did know that I had this natural ability to absorb information. I've always been someone that can absorb a lot of information. I'll be honest with you, even when I took an aptitude test because they give you one when you're about to leave the military, you know what they said I was supposed to do? It said I was supposed to be a teacher. I was like, man, I'm not going to be no teacher. They ain't making any money. I'm trying to be a doctor. I ignored the signs, y'all. It told me to go be a teacher. It said, you need to be in research, you need to be in education, you need to be in this. And I was like, not me. I went the opposite direction. I ended up in finance, which, is good because I like, I'm very linear, so I can do numbers. But things that you have a natural ability to. I've always had a natural ability to absorb information. So I used to read all the time. Even I remember being in kindergarten and just reading everything. My best place on earth was the library. So think about what is natural to you. Things that people tell you naturally. Has anybody ever been given a compliment for something? Maybe you just have really good hand-eye coordination. Maybe you're just really good at fixing things. You're really good at seeing something. You're really good at big picture. It doesn't have to be the obvious. We all don't sing and dance for a living, right? But think about things that you are naturally good at, things that people compliment you on all the time. Give me a thumbs up if you've ever you get complimented on something that maybe you don't even think is a talent, right? You're like, okay, whatever, right? And because you know what, the things that we're natural at, we don't even think is a talent. My friend, if anybody would have told me, Cynthia, you have a natural ability to absorb a lot of information. I'm like, okay, what does that even mean? What does that even mean? I used to get told all the time, you're always trying to explain things to people. Okay, is that a talent? I had no idea that was a talent. Some of our talents are not obvious, right? But what I learned as I got into my careers is that things that are you do naturally is where you're going to make your money. Things that you do naturally, that's what they say. We never want to believe it. But I said, okay, I'll keep that in the back of my mind. And so the assessment will help you, it'll ask you some questions, and it's just going to be a bunch of questions, guys. It's not going to be something really hard, but it's going to start telling you things that you might have a natural aptitude to do. Now, your ability is something that you have the capacity to do. Some people have the ability to master skills. They have a big capacity to do a lot of things. Like I have a big capacity to absorb information and then synthesize it. I don't know how I'm able to do it. I don't know why I'm able to do it. I don't even know why I'm interested in doing it, but that's just how my brain works, right? Nothing gets me more excited, and I know I'm about to sound like a little nerd, than for someone to say, "Oh, Cynthia, can you go read this book and put it together and then explain it to people?" I'm like, "Yeah." Now watch this before you start thinking I'm all that. Don't ask me to do the work. I don't want to do the work. I'll explain it, but don't ask me to do it. Then I'm going to get upset. I don't want to physically do it, but I can tell you how it's done. I'm lazy when it comes to that. But I do have just a natural ability to do stuff. So think about, what do you have a natural ability to do? Not that it's going to change what you're doing now, but it's going to help you as you're doing your research to say what I should choose in that field. So for example, I didn't know what I was gonna do with, oh, Cynthia, you should teach, or you should, you should be a good researcher. But I had it in the back of my mind when I took that a self-assessment. And so when I started trying to figure out, do I get in finance? Do I get in I still wasn't trying to be a teacher. I was trying to own my own business. Do I get in IT? What I said was, okay, well, if I do that, how can I do it naturally? Maybe I can, be a researcher. Maybe I can, when I was in finance, I wanted to work on Wall Street. I did ended up working on Wall Street, but not in the way that I wanted to. I was working for a nonprofit. I thought I wanted to work on the stock market, but I noticed that I did well when I was helping people do it, when I was showing people how to do stuff. So then I started leaning into the training side. So when I was in my different respective jobs, I always did well when I was training somebody. So I kept that in the back of my mind, because sometimes you watch yourself. You're like, okay, I see what you're doing, girl. Even though you say you don't want to do something, you're finding yourself leaning towards it. And then when I was in nonprofit and I was in nonprofit finance, I had to go to a conference and I had to do a table. You know how you go to those table events. And this lady approached me and she was like, I'm a recruiter for this college. And I noticed that, you do really, really well when you're talking to people. Have you ever considered being a professor? And I'm like, absolutely not. No, lady, I think I was trying to I was working for, no, I was about to go work for as an investment accountant for the Bank of New York. So I'm not trying to be we get out of here with that, but she's like, you really should consider it. I'm like, okay, whatever. So I ended up, auditioning, and back in those days, it was very difficult to get into this specific university. Like you had to go through a week-long training. You had to do simulation teaching and all kinds of crazy stuff. And I went through that week-long training. I imagine I'm going through this week-long, it was almost like not even a training, an interview process. And I'm like, why am I even here? But I found myself liking it. It was so crazy. It was like, even just sitting in the university, I was like, oh, this is like home for me. It's education everywhere. And all these nerdy people talking about nerdy stuff. And I was so excited about it because I felt like I was learning. And I was like, this is a natural place for me to be. It was so crazy. I still ran from it. I'm still kind of running from it, but it's funny. I finally just accepted the fact that I did well as a teacher. I accepted the fact. Um, I even took this thing called a personality test. Anybody ever take a personality test before? And saying your hand is up. I don't know if you have a question or if you just don't know how to put your hand down, but I'm getting confused. If you have a question, if just drop your hand if you don't, because it's going to give me anxiety thinking you have a question. Okay. But if you've ever taken this personality test, it kind of does the same thing. It kind of tells you, what, it's similar to the assessment test we're going to have you guys do today, but it's leans a little bit more into the psychology of you and things that you like. And it doesn't just talk about like career stuff, but it talks about other stuff as well. These are actually good for you to take if you're trying to figure out, okay, where, what my natural personality, where would I fit, right? Because I love to explain things to people. So of course it's going to, oh, be a teacher, right? But also what your values are important. For me, there are certain things that I won't do because of my value system, because of my belief system. Maybe that will be as well for you too, right? Like, I know if I was in the electrical field, y'all don't talk about me, but I don't think I could work for Duke Energy. You have to go and turn people's electricity off. I couldn't do it. I could not do it. I would, I don't know, because I'm thinking about what if they got kids and they got a baby and the milk is gonna spoil. See, I couldn't do it. Like certain things you got to know yourself to know, okay, will I do well in this field? Would I be able to do it? You see a lot of people, but I was in the military, so there's that, right? But see, when I was in the military, yeah, I know somebody else has responded to that. Like, I don't know, I can't turn people's lights off. People say, well, how are you able to be in the military? But see, for me, the military was different because I definitely know I have a hero complex. I'm always trying to save somebody. Like, I'm always looking for that family that's on the corner, so I could give them money. I'm always on the prowl for them every Saturday. I'm weird. So I always try to save somebody. But so when I was in the military, to me, it made sense, because I'm like, yeah, I can save people and save the day. I wasn't thinking about the negative side of it, thinking about, being a hero. So I know my personality, right? You have to know yourself, but you also have to know where your value system is. All that is going to be important because what then happens is while you're trying to figure out where you're trying to go, you're going to end up putting your skills, which you have, into two buckets, both what we call soft skills, which lean in on the psychological stuff, as well as hard skills. This is more the technical stuff that you learn in your field, right? And some of who you are will naturally lean in and do very easy the technical stuff, and some of you will have a natural inclination for the soft skill stuff. It's going to be important for you because you are the one that is going to decide where you're going to take your career. And the goal is for you to align your soft skills and hard skills with what is needed for where you're trying to go. So, for example, if I'm in the VA, who's in the VA program? Veterinary assistant, for those of you that don't know. Anybody in the VA program? Okay, I got a few. So let's talk VA for a second. And by the way, if you guys haven't noticed, everybody's in this class. So we got VA. Where my welders at? Good thumbs up so we can so y'all can just see. If I use different experiences, it's because of that. Okay, y'all see my welders? With my HVAC. Any HVAC in the building? I don't know why I do this like I'm a DJ. Any HVAC? like I'm a DJ or something. All right, and then electrical. Electrical. All right, so I just want everybody to see because most of y'all didn't know that all these people were here, and then we're from all over Orlando. I'm sorry, we're from all over Florida, right? We got Brandon in the house. We got Sanford, Orlando, Tampa, Fort Myers. Yeah, look at me giving shout outs. I don't know. I'm not at a nightclub, but that's what we got. So I just want y'all to know if I use different examples, that is why. I don't want somebody saying, why is she talking about that? And I'm in the electrical program. All right. So for my VA folks, y'all tell me, what was I about to go with that? Okay. So if I wanted to have a long-term goal, and let's just say my long-term goal was to become, I wanted to get into veterinary medicine, right? So my long-term vision, because y'all already said, now I'm going to use me as an example. I'm a researcher. I like science-based stuff. So for me, if I was in the VA field, I probably want to become like a veterinary specialist of some sort, maybe work at a hospital in a science lab, maybe doing research on how to cure diabetes in cows. I don't even know if cows have diabetes, but that is, y'all see where I'm going with that, right? Like that would make sense for me. And so let's say that's what I wanted to do. I want to be a veterinary specialist. And let's say it took me 6 years to become that. Obviously, the first job I'm going to go for is probably going to be something in some type of hospital, right? Or some type of research lab. And I'm going to look for things that go natural with my natural soft skills and hard skills. Well, I know it on the hard skills side, I'm a veterinary assistant. I've gotten these technical skills, but on the soft skills side, I got to make sure that things I do naturally make sense with working in this industry, because every industry wants you to have both hard and soft skills. And of course, we want to align those skills with what we already have, or what we can do naturally, or what we can learn. Like, you don't want to end up doing something that you don't want to do. Because if you end up doing something that you don't want to do, you're not going to be good at it. Does that make sense? So if I want to, and I've already told you I'm research, so I'm going to do research. I know, for example, that I'm really good at being flexible. Some of these soft skills, I know I'm really good at problem solving, right? And I have a lot of self-confidence. I know that for sure. When I'm doing my research to become a veterinary medicine specialist, and I'm going to be looking at different jobs, I'm going to be looking to see what type of skills they want. And guess what? Most job descriptions list hard and soft skills. Have you guys ever noticed that? They list both hard and soft skills because they're telling you this is the type of personality, this is the type of person that we want. Can you imagine working in medicine and you don't like people, you don't like being around? Y'all say, yeah, I know a lot of people like that, right? We know a lot of people like that. But that's why they don't do well with their job. Like, you need to do something that makes sense for you, because when you start looking for jobs, and we're going to be doing some of those exercises, it's going to list these hard and soft skills, and you want to be in alignment. You do well when you do stuff that is natural. So some of you may say, well, ma'am, welding is not a natural thing, but you chose welding for a reason. Maybe you just like doing things with your hands. You chose electrical for a reason. Even if it's, oh, my uncle did it or my next door neighbor, said do it. You didn't just say, okay, let me just go to school just because my next door neighbor said it. There was something about this industry that attracted you, right? Now you just want to get more in alignment. You want to align yourself, who you are naturally, with your industry. And that's why you got to do that research. And everything that you research, you want to say, okay, what type of skills does it take to do that job? And does it make sense for me? Because you really want to align your skills with the work that you choose, because the more you align it, the easier that work will be. You want it to be to the place where it doesn't even feel like work, right? So even though, I've been teaching for 20 years, but I've always had a parallel career. Like I said, I've been in finance, I've been in consulting, I've been in nonprofit, and I've always taught, not because that was where I needed my money. It's not how I made my money. But I taught just because I liked it. The lady gave me the teaching bug, and she bit me, and I was like, yeah. Yeah, I never committed to it. Even though I teach full time now, I still have my consulting firm and still do stuff like that. But teaching comes natural to me. It's not like, anybody that ever knows anything about me, any school I've ever worked for, and I've worked for a lot of different institutions, they'll say, yeah, get Miss Taylor to teach. She'll teach. Because to me, it's not even work. To me, it's I'm sharing information and I get excited when you get excited. I guess I'm a nerd in that way because it doesn't feel like teaching to me. It doesn't feel like work, right? It feels like I'm just sharing information. Am I working? Absolutely. Trust me. There's work involved, right? We have to prepare things. You have to read a lot if you're a teacher or a researcher. You read a lot just to give you this short amount of information. I got to read everything just to give you, 30 minutes of work. Um, but it's natural for me. So it makes sense for me. It's easy for me to do, right? So in addition to these skills, the companies are going to want you to have other skills too. Y'all already know technology skills. Most of you, have you guys all noticed? Give me a thumbs up if you've noticed how technology has shaped your industry. Now, I know some of you haven't been in your industry long, but I'm sure some of your instructors will tell you, well, we used to do it this way, but now we're doing it this way. And they talk about how technology has shaped it. For a lot of you guys, especially, or all of you really, technology has completely shifted how you work. And so imagine 10 years from now, your work is going to be different, very different, based on technology, because y'all know technology is not slowing down. We hear it in the news, all that drama, right? Even your job is going to want you to have some basic technology skills. So just know that y'all already know it's going to want you to know how to use a computer and things of that nature, because even if you're going to be out in the field, you may have to do reports. You may have to, keep track of your time. So even as you're thinking about, your first job, if you don't know basic stuff like the difference between a Google Doc and Microsoft Office and what's it, you might want to learn those basic things, right? Because they will expect you to have these basic skill sets, especially if you're going to be on the road. They're probably going to give you some type of laptop or whatever else. If you are in the VA program, you could be working the front desk and all kinds of stuff, right? So y'all know that. So let's do a quick recap before Ms. Taylor gives us a practical exercise on how to think about this long-term goal. She wants me, Miss Taylor, to set a long-term goal for myself. Hmm? She's told me that if I don't really have an idea of what I want, part of what she wants me to do is do a little bit of research in my industry, right? So you're going to go and you're going to do some research in your industry, what's happening in my industry, top, jobs in your industry. Those are the type of things that I would be looking for. She wants me to take a self-assessment. And then she wants me to come up with a long-term goal. But she's told me that before I do this long-term goal, that it can't just be any goal. It needs to follow what we call the SMART rule. So here's the SMART rule. The SMART rule for setting goals says that your goals need to be specific, measurable, attainable, realistic, and timely. What does that mean? That means that the goal has to be stated, something that you want to do, right? Very specific. You need to be able to measure the goal, right? You can't say, I want to be successful in my HVAC career. Can any of us help you measure that? Can y'all help me measure that? Because what would be the obvious question? What would be the obvious question if I said, I want to be successful in my HVAC career and I'm trying to measure it? What would you say to me? How do I define what? Success. What does that mean? What's success? Because successful to me could be something totally different to you, right? I could be a little bit more greedy. So for me, I could say I want to make $50 million. That's to me a success. Success to you could be I want to make enough money to put my kids through school, to buy a house and live comfortably. So as long as I'm able to bring in, $150,000 a year, that's success to me. Right? So you have to define it. Just saying I want to be successful is not, that's a nice aspiration. It's not a goal. It needs to be attainable, something that's something that you can actually do, right? So instead of just saying I want to be successful in my HVAC career, I may say I want to become a what is it, a journeyman HVAC people? Give me a thumbs up. Is that what it's called? if I'm an HVAC technician, then after that, I can go be a journeyman, right? So I don't, success to me could be a journeyman, not just, oh, I want to, I want to have a nice HVAC career. What does that even mean, right? And so that's something I can attain as long as my goal is to be realistic. So if I said I want to be a journeyman by 2030 HVAC people, can I do that? Can I become an HVAC, a journeyman? Okay, so, okay. Oh, good, good. Okay. The subject matter experts have spoken. So that's realistic. And then it is time bound because I put a date on it. I said I wanted to be a HVAC, I wanted to become a journeyman by 2030. I've made my long-term goals SMART. Did y'all see what I just did? So I went from just having a dream, right? I want to be successful in my career. I want to get a job and baby take care of my bills. What? No, I want to become a journeyman by 2030. That's very specific, is it not? I can measure that. I'm not saying I just want to be successful in my HVAC career. What is that? I can't measure that. I want to be a journeyman. I can measure that. Why? Because it's something that is realistic, becoming a journeyman. And I said by 2030. I didn't say I want to become a journeyman by 2031. All the HVAC people would laugh. No, I'm sorry, by 2027, they probably would all laugh at me. Can I become a journeyman in 2027 if I graduate today? Go ahead, Moaz. I could. Only got one thumb, so I don't know.
You said you retain information well.
If I retain information well?
I said you retain information well. So depending on you, maybe.
And I like that confidence that you have in me. All right. So, I was told because look, I was told that maybe I could. I don't know about you, but he said maybe I could. Okay, so maybe who knows? All right, but anyway, okay, let me get off my high horse. All right, you get the point. You want to make sure it's attainable and realistic, right? I know we can talk about me all day, but so here are some examples. I put here my long-term goal is to become a master electrician by 2031. Now watch this. My second long-term goal is to own my own business by 2035. So I have two long-term goals. I want to own my own, become a master electrician by 2031. Electrical people, can I do that? And then after that, my second long-term goal is to own my own business by 2035. Or my long-term goal is to become a veterinary medicine specialist by 2032. So this is how I make my goals SMART. I don't just say, I just want to get a job. I want to take care of my family. I want to buy a house. I want to send my dog to pet school. Y'all laughing, but these are all the goals I've seen give it to my students. And I'm like, what does this even mean? You need to have a specific goal in mind so that you can measure it. So why is that? How do you plan for something if you don't know where you're going? Like, unless you're one of those type of people, which I would never go on vacation with you, that just says, hey, let's just go have a good time. I am the checklist person. Listen, we can go and have a good time, but I just need to have in the back of my mind what could happen. So I'm going to be the one that's going to check and see what everything that the resort has to offer, what time it starts. I'm going to mentally plan it out. If we don't do it all, that's fine, but I need a plan. I don't ever want to sit around and say, what can we do? I'm going to be the one that's going to whip out the itinerary and says, aha, here's what we can do, right? So I need a plan. I need some type of goal, right? Because, just there's no guarantee that we're going to have a good time if there's no plan. I mean, there's no guarantee if you have a plan, but y'all get my point, right? So yeah, there's no guarantee that you won't have a successful career if you don't plan it, but chances are Chances are, if you don't have any idea of what you're doing, and here's too why it's important, because it's also psychological, right? Chapter 1 talks about the creating this career path, and it's a strategy. You see here it says it's a strategy, because what are you doing? You're It's a personal career development. Why? Watch this. It mentally keeps you strong. Will we all agree that working for people is not easy? Working for yourself is not easy either, right? But being in a work environment is not easy. There's a lot happening, right? You got customers, you got coworkers, you got money, you got things you got to do. All these different variables that are happening around you, and it does cause a lot of stress, particularly, depending upon the type of environment that you're in and the work that you do. You need a true north. You need something that says, okay, this is what my goal is. My goal is I'm going to be here for 2 years. That's my short-term goal. And then I'm going to move here. Then I'm going to go back to school. Then I'm going to start my own business. When you have those goals in mind, you can stomach situations a little better than if you just take this job and you put all your thoughts into this one job. My goal is just to get the job. I just want to go work for this construction company. I've been wanting to work for them forever. And then you go work for that construction company. You think that's it for you. You're just going to be live happily ever after. And then the company closes. Or you get a new manager and the manager's horrible. Or the company decides it's going to move to another state. Now what? So now you got to go figure it out again. But if you have a plan in mind, it doesn't mess you up psychologically so much than when you don't have a plan. So having a plan is not just, so you can check boxes. It also gives you that mental stamina to stay the course. Anybody ever played sports before? You'll understand that, right? Anybody ever played sports before? That's why that coach is always, y'all know what I'm talking about, right? You can't focus on that one loss. But if you don't even have a goal in mind, you lose, you're gonna quit. But if you have that goal in mind, one little thing is not gonna, y'all know it's the same type of stamina, right? So when you have a goal in mind, it helps train your brain to say, okay, one loss is nothing. They shake it off, you keep going. But when you don't have a goal in mind, it's very difficult to follow your dreams, right? So when career pathing, in chapter 1 is going to talk about, working your way up to the top. We call that a career ladder. If your goal is to like, oh, let's say you do want to work for a major corporation and kind of hang your hat there. And so you're going to do your research, what corporations are the best to work for. Back in my day, I don't know if any company is good right now with all this drama that we're seeing. So I don't even want to shout out any company. They're all bad right now, right? But let's say there's a company you've always wanted to work for that you respected. I would say find more than one. And you did want to hang your hat there and kind of work your way up to the top and work with them for a long time. Let's say you've always wanted to work in, let's say, an airline. Like maybe you are in electrical or HVAC or welding. Not any of you could work in the airline industry. And you found this, airline that specifically you wanted to work for it because you heard about all the great benefits that they had, and you want to work your way up to the top and you want to stay with them. There's so many people I know that have been with those type of large institutions forever. They give 30 years of service, even if it's not with that one company, but in that specific industry. You can definitely, work your way up, and maybe that's what you want to do, but that's why you got to do your research so you can really figure out what it is you want to do. So when you go into that first job, that entry level job, you go in there with confidence because you know that you're going to work your way up that ladder, right? Maybe not to be the CEO, but maybe to be a specialist, and sometimes that's great too, right? People make a lot of great money doing that. All right. So a career ladder is just talking about in the go ahead, Saint. Now, Saint, you better have a question now because you've been confusing us with this hand.
My apologies.
Go ahead. Oh, you don't have a question. You did it again.
No, I don't have a question. I was just reacting to your teaching.
Oh, okay, okay, okay. All right. So you can give me a different emoji than the hand because I get confused. All right. So The career lattice is where you may not work your way up to the top. Let's say if I'm in a VA program and then I decide I'm going to work as a VA for a year or two, then I'm going to go back to be a VT, you know. Um, then I work in the VT for a while, and then I can go be a specialist. But then I decide I'm going to go back to school again and do something else. Like, so you may not necessarily have a straight shot to one place, and that's okay too. You don't always have to think, oh, if I go work at a company, my goal is to be the boss. That's not always how your career progression has to work. So that's all the lattice thing talks about. All right, my friends. So before I give you your conference question for today, I just want to show you, because I do get a few people that are using their cell phones and they never seem to see the full question. So this question here specifically, when you go to do your personality test, there's going to be a link there that will show you where the test is. And then these two questions are off to the right. If you don't see it, it's because your device that you're looking on. I've heard some people say, "Oh, they saw was dots." And that's when I'll tell them just look at it on the computer. But after you've taken this test, you're going to come back and tell me what your score was, and make sure you include the score itself and tell me what it was, and then tell me whether you think it was accurate or not. So talk a little bit about the test results, and then tell me how you feel about them. That is for that test. And then for your second, so technically you have three things today. But remember, this personality test you have all the way till Sunday to do. So technically you don't have to do it today. You are going to be setting your long-term goals. So you'll be starting the career planning project. Please pay attention to where it says this comes in 3 parts. You are only required to do the first part today, was to give me, I would love for you to give me 2 long-term goals, but if you only have one, I'm fine with it. At least one long-term goal. You will need that long-term goal. If you don't set the long-term goal right, then step 2 and 3 are not going to make any sense, right? If I say I want to become a master electrician by 2031, and if I say I just want to be successful in my master electrician career, how am I going to set steps for that? If I say I want to become a master electrician by 2031, now I can set short-term steps to make that happen, right? So make sure that you do that long-term goal. But before you do it, don't try to put it down today unless you know for sure what you want to do. Do your research, do that test, do some research on your industry, and then try to give me a long-term goal by Sunday. All right? Any questions on that? All right, here's your participation question for today. Here's what I want to know. I want you, because we talked about these hard skills and soft skills, I want you to think about, okay, what are the top 3 skills in my industry? Now, if y'all been in your technical classes and your instructor should have been telling see if you've been listening to your instructors. If not, you can just Google it. I'm fine with that. Top 3 hard skills for your respective fields. And then now this one is going to be more unique to you. What are your specific top 3 soft skills? Now, each of you may have your own level of soft skills. Maybe you specifically have them. Now, if you feel like you don't have any soft skills to transfer, then you can, Google soft skills needed for my industry. But I want to give me 3, and this is really for you, right? Because I want this revelation to get you to start thinking about, oh, okay, if these are top skills that people are looking for, do I even have these skills? We're going to be doing a lot more of this type of research, but this is just to get your feet wet. All right, my friends, that is it for today. 3 hard skills, 3 soft skills for your specific industry. Please have this done by 12:30, okay? Have a great day, guys. I'll talk to you tomorrow. Okay, bye-bye. Bye-bye.